Alright guys, just for fun, I'm going to go through some old slide decks. It's been a while, so please forgive me, but I'm just going to see, I'm actually testing out this Camtasia here. But I'm going to go on to and go ahead and do a presentation on game mechanics and kind of what they are and how we can utilize them currently in the workforce today. So this is just a quick slide deck. I'm just running it off of my computer, and I hope you guys get some takeaways from this. Alright, so the first thing I got to do is figure out how to advance the slides. Alright, so what we're really trying to do is bridge the gap between fun and work, and the reality is I really believe that they're the same thing. A lot over the years, play and the word play and work are been separated in a lot of ways. And what I mean by that is when we look at it, we look at the words play as in a negative aspect, like you're such a player, you know, or quit playing around, you know, things like that. And that's kind of directly tied to like games and stuff like that and fun. But then work, you know, you got to work hard. It's almost this thing where it's supposed to be something that you don't enjoy. It's supposed to be tough, you know, get out there and get to work. You know, you're not supposed to be enjoying yourself. Well, that's complete rubbish. It's actually, your work can be fun, and what we're going to do is look at ways to gamify it. So now if you take a run per se, let's say you're going for a run. You don't just go out running blindly and say, I'm just going to run and run until I'm tired. No, what you do is you say, hey, you know what, I'm going to try and run for 20 minutes. I'm going to try and run for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And if you're not doing that, you're saying, well, I'm going to try and run, you know, an hour or two. What is that? That's a measurement. You know, I'm going to run a mile or two. That's another measurement. And what we're really trying to do is, why would we want to do that? Because we want to have some sort of mastery. We want to say, hey, you know what? Next time I do it, I'm going to try and do it faster, or the same distance, or I'm going to try and do it further. So we do this every day, whether we like it or not. We can do it with work. So I always like this quote. Again, this is an old slide deck, but really what we're going to do is we're going to get simple. We're going to try and get feedback back to people, and that's what is absolutely crucial in terms of game dynamics and game mechanics and just human behavior. So first, I want to go a little bit into where I kind of started to touch on some of this stuff, and really a lot of what the work that I've been doing it's all people related. Everything I do has nothing to do with computers. It has to do with people. I'm not good at computers. I've never really been good at computers. I'm not good at being a CAC. I'm not good at even running the photocopier or hooking up a printer or anything like that. So a lot of what we're doing is just learning how to interact with, you know, interface with these technologies, and how people interface with these technologies, and how, you know, people interface with each other. So when we were at when we went to IHI Improvement Advisor School, these were the main things that they were teaching us. Appreciation for the system, understanding that the whole, you know, there's this big giant world out there, and you better understand that whatever you do within that system is going to change other things, have cascading effects, right? And to understand that variation, how that happens, you know, don't just freak out because something happens here. It's a big system. You got to understand that maybe that is, you know, if you draw out far enough on a you know, a line, a run graph, it's almost a straight line. That might mean that the system's actually pretty okay. But you know, because what you'll see is what will happen is you'll make a little tweak in something, you'll quickly run out and run a chart, and then you'll try and change that whole entire system. Well, the reality is that's just normal. It's not special. Building knowledge, and so a lot of what we do, the work that we do, is you know, you probably heard of the words PDSA and stuff like that. That's really just an exercise of building knowledge. And to me, I consider like knowledge building is, hey, we try this, we observe it, we kind of have a prediction, a hypothesis, and then we go and look at it and we measure it. And then we do it enough times in different ways, and we know it works a certain way or knows how it behaves, and we can predict it, you know, completely accurately. That's called building knowledge. Then we know when to go and implement a change. But the last one that struck me was something that we don't really talk about or deal with much in IHS or in our tribal healthcare system is the human side of change. You know, we just kind of say go do it and then wonder why things haven't really worked out in our favor. So let's take a look at that, the human side of change. So here is a couple of things that the first thing you need to know is that when you're offering a change to a group of people, is that they're all different. And this was pretty amazing to me because it really made me think about how I'm going to frame conversations and how we're going to move into things like where we want to introduce a new concept. So the first type of group of people would be what you call the blues, right? And the blues are the nurturing folks. They're very, sometimes this is like behavioral health kind of will fit into this a lot of times. But also, nurses and mothers and stuff like that. So these people you can identify a lot by, well, this is how my patient will feel. You'll hear those words, feel. So when you're introducing these concepts, make sure that you have, in your change, you're talking about how it's going to benefit the patient and their well-being and their feeling. They're going to be happier, have an impact story, if you will. This is green. So these are the analytical folks. So these are your CFOs and sometimes your engineers or sometimes your IT guys, sometimes your doctors. Very analytical. They want to see step by step by step. And if you're introducing a new concept or a change idea to this group of people, you better have data to back it up because what they'll do is they'll find the one little thing. They'll say, well, what if? You'll identify these people because they'll say what if in your crowd. What if this doesn't work, or what if that? They're looking for ways to puncture that idea, or the minute you can't back it up, they're done. They're checked out. You're a complete failure. This last group, the Reds, if you mix them all together, it's a group called the Hubs. But this last group, the Reds, they're pretty interesting too. They're your bull in the china shop. They're your wrecking ball, if you will. But they're also challenge driven. A lot of times you'll see your CEOs or those type folks who are mostly leaders. A lot of times they like challenges. They like things to be almost impossible, egocentric in a lot of ways. This group of people are pretty interesting because they do get stuff done. That's what makes them so great, I guess, but that's also what makes them so dangerous. So the reality is if you're going forth with a change concept, you're going to want to make sure that the very first thing is to understand there's different people. And when you're going to go out and address this stuff, this is kind of what you're going to want to do is make sure you're hitting all these things. So if you watch like Barack Obama or any politician these days, they literally deliver their content in a way that hits all of these nerve endings, if you will. So they'll say something with an impact story. I was talking to Grandma so-and-so. She was been without a social security check because of the government shutdown. And all of a sudden you have these nurturing folks saying, yeah, my grandma needs her money. What's going on here? So they perk up, right? But if we have a 17% decline over the years, but we could turn this around and have a 5%, and now they're dropping some numbers and they're showing you this path forward, they're laying it out. We can do this. And then you'll see this impact, normally in these sentences, it will be kind of the end of it. So it's very storytelling in a lot of ways. The very end of it, they'll say something like, we are come from the greatest nation on earth, and if we could land on the moon, we could do this. We're Americans, and boom, now all the Reds are listening in. So that's one of the first concepts of understanding humans and behaviors is just learning how to address these different types of folks that are in your room. So, well, how do you know, and when you're looking at people, how do you know what type they are? But how do you know more importantly, because we're talking about behaviors, right? But what are behaviors really? Behaviors are like what we're doing. It's our actions, what you're kind of seeing on the outside. But what drives that in a lot of ways? And this is really interesting picture I saw. So you have your behaviors, what you're doing externally, and that's what people see. But underneath that is your intentions. A lot of times we all have really good intentions, but it looks like so-and-so's a jerk because, they're sabotaging you or something, but they're not. They actually probably have a good intention, but what you're seeing is a behavior which you're misinterpreting. And then underneath all of that is what motivates you, and that's very key. What motivates you? Why are you here? What are you doing? So where does motivation come from? There's been a lot of books written on this subject. There's been a lot of really good books actually written on this subject, and there's been a sea change over the last couple of years on as the millennials are moving into the marketplace, into the workforces and stuff like that. You're seeing this change really start to happen, not only on the fun work divide no longer existing, and work is play now, and vice versa. Play is work apparently. You got to go get all your skis together and go get that lift ticket and all that crap. That's hard work. What you're seeing is they're enjoying it, and they do things for the why, not necessarily the material that they get from it or to pay the bills. They're working someplace because of a status, or they're working someplace because it's hip and it's fun. So anyways, to bring you around a little bit real quick, there's a couple good books right here. Connected was a really good book talking about how we're very social as creatures, and Seductive Interaction Design talks a little bit about how we interact with things like our computers and stuff like that, but also how little things about how the human mind works and behaviorisms. Reality is Broken was really great. Why games make us better and how they can change the world. Nudge is behavioral economics, talking about how do people think, and how do they kind of commit to things, and when you walk into Safeway, for example, there's a lot of behavioral economics going on right in there, and how they steer you around, and how default options, and how many things they place out in front of you to make a selection. And then The Art of Game Design. All these are really good books, but there was one book that kind of I liked it for layman use in a lot of ways, and how I just broke it down real quick in that very Malcolm Gladwell-y kind of way, was Drive by Daniel Pink. So Daniel Pink wrote this book called Drive, and it was absolutely to a T. Just boiled down what motivates people really is. And if you look right here in the title, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. So Daniel Pink said autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So I would almost say give people a purpose, you give them autonomy to go do something, and along the way they get the satisfaction of mastering something. Everything we do in life is that way. You don't just cook a meal and be like, I can't wait to cook a crappy meal just like this again. No, you want to get better at cooking that meal. You want to understand how to do the bok choy just right in the frying pan or something like that, and maybe a little bit more garlic next time. You're always trying to get better. You have this autonomy. Your purpose is to create a meal, and as you get better, you become a master. You become a chef, kind of thing. So, well, this has already kind of existed back in the 70s. They called it Self-Determination Theory. So a lot of similarities: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. But I think there's something in there that really jumped out at me in reading this book, and this is just a highlighted off my iPad or whatever. For some people, much of what we do all day consists of these routine, not terribly captivating tasks in these situations. It's best to try and unleash the positive side of the Sawyer Effect. So you guys can go ahead and Google that as a homework assignment, if you will. The Sawyer Effect's pretty interesting. But if we unleash the positive sides of the Sawyer Effect by attempting to turn work into play, to increase the task variety, to make it more like a game, or to use it to help master other skills. So the Sawyer Effect is, Tom Sawyer is sitting there and he has to go paint a fence, and he's bummer, I want to go play or go fishing or do whatever Tom Sawyer does. That young man his age would do. And as he's painting the fence, some kid walks by and goes, "Aha, what are you're painting a fence?" He's like, "Oh, no. I'm not just painting a fence here, buddy. This is an honor. I'm actually privileged to be sitting here painting this fence. Not anybody can paint the fence. Like, for example, you couldn't paint the fence. It's a special privilege that we have. And it was bestowed upon me." Well, the little kid says, "Well, I want to paint the fence. What makes you so special?" Well, you know what? I tell you what, I'll let you paint the fence, but you gotta go around the corner over here, maybe on the back side where they're not gonna see it. And we'll try a couple brush strokes. And you can start back there. I'll stay up here in the front. You know, we don't want to keep you hidden. So the reality is pretty soon, you know, he's getting people to come up. Well, why is he painting the fence? I want to paint the fence. You know, he sets up a thing where you got guys paying him to paint the fence. This is brilliant, right? Well, this actually exists now currently, and there are examples of this where you can pay into something. Let's say you're trying to hire providers, and your initial thought is, you know, well, we need to pay him more money because we're having a hard time getting providers, and we need to invest more in this. Well, you guys probably heard me talk about this before, but I almost bet you can do the reverse. You could have people pay you to be a part of your system if you create the right perception around this. Meaning, like, hey, come to Alaska, this rugged, beautiful place where you can do an internship out at one of our remote islands, something like that per se. And then all of a sudden you switch the whole entire perspective and you have people paying into your system, which is pretty amazing. All right, so let's take a look at what all games kind of have central and what makes them work. All right, games: autonomy, mastery, purpose, confidence, relatedness, and feedback. All right, this is what makes games great, and all games have these in common. Well, this is very interesting. We have right here on this very page autonomy, mastery, and purpose, confidence, and relatedness. This is self-determination theory, and this is drive and motivation. Games actually have this a part of what they're doing. I believe, like right now in Indian health services and tribal healthcare systems, we could create a lot of this right now. There's one thing we're lacking though. What do you think it is? Of course, it's feedback. So let's first start out with gamification. What does that mean? It's kind of a very hip cliche word, and this next section I'm going to be taking from all of this is completely stolen from everybody else. So there's that out there, that disclaimer. But Gabe Zickerman basically says it's the process of game thinking and game mechanics to engage users and solve problems. Yeah, let's get some of that going on, right? So here's this big popular word, and it's been thrown around a lot, but actually it's something that's very simple. It's like let's use some of these ideas that have already existed in other industries, and let's start putting them into our own industry. So this one is really interesting. Games, we're saying games, but you're a dentist and you say, hey James, there's nothing fun about getting your tooth pulled or going to see the dentist. Well, I think that's really interesting. Let's look at this. This is screenshots of some different games, and again, this was like from Gabe Zickerman's presentation. But he made a very good point, and he was saying Farmville, a Zynga game, billion-dollar company. You literally cultivate crops. Yahoo! That's work. Being a farmer is hard work, right? But yet people, for day, spending mass amounts of their time and hours, trying to water their crops. If you change the frequency on that per se, let's say just for fun, if Zynga said you got to water it every 5 minutes, or else your crops are going to die, you might have a major loss of productivity in the United States just because so many people are playing that game. And these are old games. I mean, but there's a point behind that too. There's something, a point that I want to drive home on that. Look at over here is, I believe that's Dine and Dash, and then down below is Diaper Dash. So again, a bunch of people are playing a game called Dine and Dash where you're a waiter. Another one is changing diapers, okay? Changing diapers. Really? That's supposed to be fun, right? This third one over here is flight control. This is an industry that has been plagued with like the highest rates of suicide and all this great stuff. And you have John Cusack in a movie with Billy Bob Thornton. That's fun. Flying a bunch of planes. Yes, it is, and that's the point that I think Gabe Zickerman is making. It is the mechanics of the game, not the theme, that make it fun. So, okay, so let's get this straight. So, pretty much anything can be fun, is what it's really saying here if you do it right. So, okay, so now we're in an industry, healthcare, how do we make that kind of fun? Well, that's where you start to look at like game mechanics and things like that. So let's take a look at some different things. So whatever you do, whether you're on AlaskanAirlines.com or whatever, you have different elements of game mechanics going on. First one is achievement. You got to have some ways of like what actions do you want people to take and how do you kind of reward those actions. Now be careful here because there's a whole entire punishing to reward kind of mentality here that is very interesting. Like you don't want to just throw some rewards at people for things because then it's not intrinsic, it's extrinsic. But what you do need to do is show something, not monetarily, but something of like you've leveled up in a way. So you have to have some kind of achievement. Real time versus delayed mechanics is very interesting. So you have people playing a game per se, right? But you have to create this like anticipation. Anticipation, with the game industry knows a lot about this, and when I say game industry, I don't mean like the video game industry. They know a lot about it, but what I'm really saying is the one-armed bandits down at down in Las Vegas. They understand this quite well. What they were noticing is when if we look at Skinner and these other guys back in the past and the tests that they were doing, is that large amounts of dopamine were being released in anticipation of an award. So you're pulling the thing, that's when the dopamine is getting released, and it actually doesn't really spike up after you win the money. It's the process of, oh my god, I can win. So if you're going to create a game or something like that, you almost want to have this like random, like holy macaroni, I won something kind of thing, and you don't know when it's going to happen. So you do know that you're working towards the goal, and you're partaking in a game, and your goal is to get 21 of your Gipper measures or something like that, or some kind of award. But along the way, you're like, oh my gosh, I got the golden ticket. I get to have a day off tomorrow. Or, oh my gosh, this is so great. So what you do is you try to have these things like incorporated into whatever you design as a game. Countdown. We have countdowns for everything that we do constantly, right? Look at this. What is it? Gipper a year. You gotta get it done by here. Spend your money or in your budget by the end of this, this time frame. Do this by this time frame. Everything we do is a countdown in a lot of ways. Progression dynamic. You have to have some kind of way to show that people are progressing along. So if you looked at your LinkedIn account, it shows you quite well. This is how well you're doing. You need to do. You're at 80%. You need that 20 more percent to have a 100% profile. So what do? You do that 20% because it just drives you nuts, probably. But anyways, that's an example of like a progression bar, if you will. Loyalty. You can create loyalty almost out of anything. Gabe Zickerman is actually one of the best at talking about loyalty, so you can go look him up after you watch this. But look at loyalty as this. You can create, everybody's working together for a common purpose, which is the very next one, epic meaning. Everyone's working together for a common purpose, but along that route, they can't get there without working together, but you can create groups of loyalty between teams. So you have like the blue team and the red team or the green team that are like pods where your doctor and your nurse and so working towards something. You can also have it at like a clinic level, health or so-and-so here and so-and-so there. You can have it at a hospital level. You can just keep leveling this thing out all crazy. State of Alaska. Oh yeah, we're Alaska. We're doing so awesome at this, compared to everybody else. So now you have loyalty within the state of Alaska, and then now you have loyalty within, and you can just keep going, health, IHS, etc. To where you can create these things. Epic meaning, healthcare, life, death. We have a story. We have an impact story in everything we're doing. We are saving lives in everything we do. If you have, let's say, you increase your cancer screening rates, you're screening at 40% for colorectal cancer, and you pump that up to 70%, you have 4,000 patients. What does that number translate as? Find that out and present that. Give that feedback back out. That's an impact story, because what you're doing is you're saving lives, believe it or not, because look at, if we know what the abnormal finding rate is, let's say 8% of that number, right? So we know that of all those patients, we have a couple hundred people that are getting screened more so than before, let's say 100, right? And if the abnormal finding rate is 8%, 8 people just had early detection. They are on a path to health rather than finding out that they have stage 4 cancer and they're going to die. So there is an epic meaning behind everything that you're doing. You are saving lives, but we don't even know this because we're not providing the feedback. So, all right, let's say the common traits that all games have: goals, rules, feedback system, and voluntary participation. So you remember back before what we were talking about. So now let's just start taking a look at some of these different examples and what they could look like. So here are two examples of how IHS is providing game mechanics and real-time feedback, probably without even, not intentionally. I think by accident, but it ended up actually having this effect. First one is, I would say, is the reminders clock. This is all calm on the Western Front. Blue clock, everything's good, right? Red clock, something in your brain, boom, whoa, I want to turn that blue. What the heck's going on here? You look in, you click on it, we've got an alcohol screen, a domestic violence screen that needs to be done, and a PAP smear that needs to be ordered or referred. So, okay, interesting. Now, you know what happens when you start doing this? You can't just leave that hanging out there like that. There's something about the human behavior that wants to turn that into a blue clock. I have no idea what it is. It's probably the same thing that when you're eating a bunch of brownies on a plate and you have a nice line going across and you have one little sticking out there and you just ate, you don't care, but you look at that and you know what? You want a nice clean line. What do? You lob off that brownie and chuck it in your mouth and gain 5 pounds. So I think this is something right now that is gamified within our own system and has a really positive aspect of what it's doing. Now, that's not to say for you green analytical people out there, the minute you find one broken reminder, you disregard the whole entire system. No, that's what you do is you tell your CAC and they work on it and they fix it. You're diagnosing your system. So here's another example. This is really great because they used colors. So the green is good, red is bad. You can create a patient list in eye care. Boom, you can sort for no on colorectal screening. Next thing you know, you have those patients. Now you have knowledge, right? So with this knowledge, you're not just going to sit on it. You're going to say, all right, hey, so-and-so, call these patients. Let's start looking in. Why haven't we done the colorectal screen on these patients? So this is really an elementary version of game mechanics being applied to the system that we already have. So here's another one. Let's say, what are we going to do with this, James? Well, here's something that you can do with it. I'll give you some real life examples. You go into your reminders, you're into your national measures and national aggregated. Go into there, and it gives you these nice numerator denominators, right? You could actually go in here and highlight like a good chunk of these, right? So you can just highlight that, and then you can go over to your export to Excel button, and that'll actually create an Excel spreadsheet right on your desktop. So you could do this for a provider's panel. Give it to them, clean it up a little bit, and present it back to them as a report card. Give something nice. And I don't mean report card as in, hey, Big Brother's watching you and this is not how good you're doing. But what we do is we start getting these points. We start getting these numbers like 85%. Now, we can put that on a run chart and say, well, let's try and get 86%. Let's try and get 87%. You can do it for your whole organization that way. So, metrics and scorecards, that's what we're leading up to. Here's an example of a scorecard. This is taken from Warm Springs. This is 2011. I think Michelle Miller was working on that. Jim Gamalis is down there. These guys had a pretty cool little thing that quite quickly you can say, we're making these, red, we're not making these. This is what the national average is, numerator, denominator, etc. And this is our target. Everybody should have something similar to this. Everybody should know what the goal is and what they're going for. Half the time, people don't even know what this is. It's like driving your car without knowing what the gas gauge is or how fast you're going or anything like that. We have these things of feedback built into everything we do. Like if I pick up my phone right here and I look at it, I have right on the cover here, I have my father, but I have emails that tell me what date it is. I got a text message. Now I just want to know what that text message is now. It could be something very important. I'm going to go check it out. Nope, it just says Yahoo on something or other. But that's a good example right there. Like our phones are so good at this, that they're so good at doing this, that it buzzes and we're looking at it. We got to know. They don't just tell you what it is. If they told you what it was, you wouldn't be looking at it. It's a way to get you into there and to do something. So we provide these feedbacks constantly and or things provide feedback to us constantly out here in the real world, but for some reason in our own healthcare system, we refuse to do this in any way, shape, or form. Well, how does that feedback normally happen? It happens at the end of the year. You get like a GIPR report, or you get a whatever, and it's told you go to your providers or your staff, or somebody somewhere says it's like using your measurement for accountability or something. You come back and say, you guys suck. Sorry about that. You need to do better. You're bad, at what you do. Totally not the way feedback should happen. Feedback should be not static but dynamic, constantly, and it should be constantly present. So you see where you're going, you see your projection, and how you're moving. So let's take this one. This is Erica Walter sends this out to everybody once a month in the state of Alaska. This is an excellent form of feedback because you can see what you're trying to do. You can see, yes, did you make it? No, you didn't. And you can see how many more you need to do. So now imagine if you're sending this out to the whole entire clinic, right? Diabetes team worked real hard. They made their measures. The immunization group, they worked real hard. They made their measures. Cancers, we're on top of that with our case management. Our MAs and are doing a real good job rooming the patient. We got our DVs and our prevention screens all done. Whoa, what's up, dental team? What's going on over here? You got 84 sealants. Guess what they're doing? That whole entire clinic now is, that dentist is probably going to have a hard time because they're probably going to have doctors coming over like, hey, I got this kid, came in, sprained finger, or fixed it, taped it up. I think he needs sealants. Let's get on this. We got a number to get here crunched down. So what you're doing is you're really allowing everybody to work together and rally behind like a common goal and really start to feel like they're accomplishing something moving forward. You're starting to give credit for what these people are doing, the hard work that they're doing, and that's probably the most important thing. So here's another example. I was just experimenting with different ones back in the day. This is probably horrible. I don't think I would ever give this to anybody. But it's just saying, hey, look, here's how much further you got to go to make that one. I don't really think this has enough of the elements to really pull me in. Here's another one just for fun. Here's all your patients, and here's how many more you got to do to meet the depression screen. Here's another one. I don't know if you guys ever played around with Weight Watchers on the iPad. There's a little app that you can get. Really, I was really impressed with this. This is an older picture, older image, like from like 2 years ago, 2011 or something like that. It's when I gave my first gamification talk. But this is really interesting. I was really shocked at what these guys did in terms of redesigning their whole entire system to really put some of these elements in there. Like, what is the action that they want you to take, and how do you get people to do these actions? Well, they knew that they want you to lose. Their goal is, Weight Watchers, to lose weight. Hello, right? So they know certain things, like, well, if you eat a bunch of whole apples and drink a bunch of glasses of water during the day, you're probably going to be more full. You're probably not going to eat the bad crap, and in the long run, you're probably going to lose weight. So the first thing they did was they said, well, we're going to have this only, we're going to make sure, even on this app, just like we've been doing for years, is you only weigh in once a week. You have a weigh-in date, because otherwise, what do? You weigh in the next day. You didn't go to the bathroom, and you drink too many glasses of water, and you weigh 2 more pounds than you should weigh. So that's not very good, So you would just be like, gain 2 pounds. Forget Weight Watchers. I'm done with that. Once a week, if you're doing these things, you're going to lose some weight, right? So all of a sudden they have like, I just need 2 milks or dairy products. You want to click these things. You're like, all right, how far do I got to go to get my glasses of water? I have to do at least 3 to get the little check mark, or 4 or 5. I have to do 3 fruits and vegetables. I want to take my multivitamin. These are just little things that they add to it to kind of gamify it, if you will. Well, in the long term, you're going to lose weight. So now you're starting to look at your point system. They redesign it so it's based, that point system's right up front. You can see it. They upped the number, so they made it a bigger number, so you feel mentally like you have more. And then they give you a run chart, and then they set multiple goals. They have different progression levels to keep you in flow. So you say, all right, I'm 225. I'm trying to get to a certain weight, and as you go there, they're not only giving you achievements for congratulations, you lost 5 pounds or 10 pounds or 15 pounds, but they're also doing percentages of your total body weight. So they have multiple ones already factored in. So you get this nice sense of I'm going towards my goal line. Flip that over, let's look at screening rates, something very similar to that. So anyways, long run, this is a paper that Brig Riley and Jessica Lesson, a couple of us worked on. We're trying to show the power and strength of leveraging your clinical information systems, and I believe that reminders clock was a major player in helping the Kodiak Area Native Association kind of reach these goals. But by putting things out there and gamifying your system and showing and giving people the feedback, here's what we're working for, here's what we're doing, look at the staggering difference that it makes in a healthcare system. Look at that. These numbers are maintained now. So they were literally, this is system change. They are functioning at 20%, 30% of their capacity. And now these guys are functioning probably at 80% or higher. So they literally changed the game and hence changed the healthcare of their population. So these are going to be long-term outcomes that we're going to see down the road. So let's take, what's your problem? First, go find your problem. Now let's talk about gamifying it, right? So we take the Illusion Prevail Violence Association. We have 63% tobacco use. That's like watching an episode of Mad Men, right? So what we got to do is we got to somehow address this, right? So we decided to try some feedback trial tests and see if we can move this. So here are the results of the feedback tests. You can look over here. We had flu season come out. This is a month by month. Boom. Of course, we get the big spike. You can almost tell just looking at this when we went through it was December was our tobacco month. We were hit or miss with people in the clinic in December because of the holidays. But look at this jump from the end of December to basically, if you look at that big blue column going up, that's when we started really doing our tobacco screening. Now, look at February for fetal alcohol syndrome. You could probably tell that we were doing something in February on that measure. We were providing feedback. We were focusing in on a measure, providing feedback to everybody of where we were at. So this is kind of what it looks like in on the ground of how we rolled it out. It was actually January, it looks like. So January, we started out, we were at 5%. So we sent out a list to the clinical directors saying, here's our numbers, here's where we're at. They probably mentioned it in a meeting. Hey guys, we're going to do some tobacco educations on our smokers out there. Small spike. Send the list to the providers now. So you're sending a list of patients who are due to the providers. Boom. Huge spike, right? Jumps up to 25%. Now we get a little bit of a lull, probably because they saw all their patients. Now we're sending out a graph to everybody like, well, this is how much further we need to go to get to our goal. Our goal is like 30% per se. And we're at 25%, and for the Gipper year it's 30%. We show them how much closer they are. We show them the progression of how much closer they are, and this is what we get in return. We get another spike, and here's the hard part. Now, what do you get? We met our goal, another lull. So we get another, flat line on the system. And this is a good example of flow. Now, if you do not have that next goal lined up, you're going to flatline when you end there. So you better have something like a HEDIS measure or something like that ready to go. Or, hey, let's beat last year's. Or, hey, let's beat this other group of people who are at 50% or something like that. So here's the screening rates, and here's an example of the system change that it actually brought. So we look at 2011 and we look at 2012 for domestic violence screening. This was the system change. It literally started out at 10%. Now these guys are screening at 70% for domestic violence screening. FAS started out around 10%. It's up about 70-something%. Here it is, graphed out maybe a little bit different way, a different form of feedback. Is system change on all their measures, blue being 2011, green being 2012. So that's a pretty phenomenal change in the system. So takeaways, I'll wrap this up. Takeaways, according to my wife, this when I asked her about what did you get out of this presentation, she said, well, when feedback is specific and personal and progress oriented, it increases engagement, enjoyment while improving patient care. All right, there we go. I thought it was a lot more than that, of course. Here's mine. But she nailed it on the head, and she is correct. It always comes back to the human experience. Complex systems have very simple leveraging points. Give people feedback. Hello, you can start tomorrow with an email. It really comes down to those relationships. What you're doing is showing these people that you care about them by giving them this feedback, giving them the data boy, showing them, hey, all your work is not nil, or not, doesn't. It's towards something. It's towards a common goal, and this is how it helps us. So fun, work, play might be a matter of perception, and really the focus here is on engagement. So this is one last picture. I don't think I have anything after this. But I just wanted to show you, if you're going to focus on an experience, let's look at it this way. When we have task-oriented things, like so much of how IHS rolls out stuff, it's about, is it functional? Is it reliable? Is it usable? But when you're a product, you're like, when you're a product like an iPad or something like that, functional, yes. Reliable, yes. Usable, yes. Convenient? Yeah, it's kind of pretty cool. I can look up this and do that and all this crazy stuff. Pleasurable, yes. Now they're starting to do a user experience, UI, that's really nice and meaningful, yes. So what they're doing is, when you focus, they're coming over this threshold, if you will, of just trying not to make a product, but make a product that is convenient, pleasurable, and meaningful. That's what we need to do with everything that we're doing. We need to go from this functional, reliable, usable stage and start to really design around an experience and how people interact with things. One of the first things we can do is the actual work itself. Let's focus on giving people feedback for the work that they're doing, and have work itself and going to work be a funner place, and you'll start to see some more of the outcomes of that system change. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much.